Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session as we explore topics relevant to sport and exercise psychology. We've been examining and studying psychological skills training. What are some of the skills that can be developed to strengthen our ability to manage the mind during athletic competition? Today, we want to talk about the issue of visualization, or the skill of visualization. Now, I'm sure any of you who have ever played a sport with some level of passion and engagement has actually used visualization. I'm sure whatever sport you play, you have imagined scoring the winning goal, or throwing or catching the winning touchdown, or standing at the starting blocks in the Olympics and winning the race. That imagination, the sights, the sounds, how you felt during that experience, all of those are examples of visualization. What we want to discuss today is how visualization can be used in a more systematic way to strengthen the ability of athletes and develop capacity to perform at the highest level. Now, we want to start by looking at a couple of quotations from two athletes who have been very, very successful. Michael Phelps is perhaps the most decorated Olympian, and he speaks a lot about visualization in his biography. He makes this statement: nothing is impossible. With so many people saying it couldn't be done, all it takes is imagination. And that's something I learned, and that's something that helped me. I want you to see inside of his quote that Phelps is identifying one of the key benefits of visualization. Other people were saying something couldn't be done, but because he could imagine it, because he could visualize it, because he could see it happening in his mind, it gave him a tremendous amount of self-belief and a tremendous capacity to say, yes, I can achieve this. Here's another statement by Jack Nicklaus. Before Tiger Woods arrived on the scene, Jack Nicklaus was perhaps the most famous golfer. He says, before every shot, I'd go to the movies inside of my head. And I think that's a great quote as it relates to visualization. Here is what I see. First, I see the ball where I wanted to finish, nice and white and sitting up high on the bright green grass. Then I see the ball going there, its path and trajectory, and even its behavior on landing. The next scene shows me making the kind of swing that will turn the previous image into reality. These home movies are key to my concentration and to my positive approach to every shot. And so just like Phelps, Jack Nicklaus identifies benefits of visualization: confidence, self-belief, concentration. But you can also see in his statement, it gives him a sequence of events. It gives him an ability to focus. And so just by looking at these two statements, we're seeing how visualization can actually benefit athletes. So what is visualization? Well, I think you have a good idea already, but let's give the proper definitions. Other terms that actually are synonyms of visualization are mental rehearsal, mental imagery, mental practice, or symbolic rehearsal, or covert practice. And basically what it involves is creating or recreating an experience in the mind. It's the ability to take different pieces of information, sights, sounds, thoughts, emotions, and pull them together into one coherent image. Even though we use the term imagery or visualization, you'll note that what we're describing is not just unisensory, it's not just one sense. You want to pull together smells, sounds, how it feels, kinesthetic experiences, what your emotions are like, because all of that recreates the reality of the situation the athlete is going to find themselves in. And it produces a richer and a more useful process for the athlete. I think a good way to understand this is to imagine the difference, or to think about the difference between the silent movies of the 1920s and the 3D movies seen in the 21st century. Now, the silent movies with Charlie Chaplin were good. You laughed at them, you enjoyed them. But I'm sure all of you would agree that adding sound to movies and now adding 3D visualization to a movie takes the experience to an entirely new level. And the more you can pull together these disparate pieces of information and add layers and complexity to the process of visualization, is the more it enhances its ability to achieve what the athlete wants. So let's look at some factors that allow imagery to be effective. And the first factor that we want to mention is the nature of the task. Now, it has been shown that all tasks can benefit from the use of imagery or visualization. Whether you're shooting a free throw, whether you're dribbling a ball on the soccer field, whether you're batting in cricket, whether you're imagining yourself at the starting blocks, whether you're imagining having to make a quick decision when under pressure, whether you're trying to imagine the pressure associated with taking a penalty in a final, whatever the task, it benefits from imagery. But it seems that tasks that are under the control of the athlete alone, these most benefit from imagery. So think about the difference between somebody shooting a free throw in a basketball match and somebody dribbling the ball. When you're shooting the free throw, you are totally under control. You alone are affecting that shot. Now, there are external things that might try to distract you, but you are under control. But when you're dribbling the ball, you have to think about your opponent. Where is he or she going to move? How are they going to behave? How are they going to react? And so, though you are under control, there's a different force now that's affecting you. Or what about somebody playing tennis? When they serve, they start the point. Everything is under their control. But the minute the point starts, even when they're receiving serve, their actions are dependent on what the opponent does. Imagery works best when the athlete has more control. So decision-making tasks, and tasks like shooting a basketball from a free throw line or serving a tennis ball, these often get highest benefits from visualization. Again, let me say, all tasks do benefit. But the second thing is the skill level of the performer. It's been shown that imagery benefits all athletes, whatever your skill level. But it seems experienced athletes get more out of imagery. And the reason we believe this to be so is because they just have more experience. They understand the sequence of events. They understand how it feels. They've gone through the situation before. And so they're better able to recreate more diverse and complex imagery, and also more accurate imagery. If you think about somebody shooting a free throw, as we were just referencing before, obviously the professional athlete who's been learned and trained all the different technical aspects of that shot can imagine it better than somebody who's less trained and is now starting off. And so their sequence of execution is actually more correct, and that's going to help the process of imagery. But again, this does not mean that visualization cannot help the novice athlete. Let's talk a little bit now about imaging ability. It seems that the better you are at imagining, the more maybe creative your mind is, the better or the more effective imagery is for you. But the important thing to remember here is as you practice imagery, you get better at it. So just because you don't feel you're very good at it in the beginning and you can't pull together all the sights and the sounds and the emotions, should you not use it? What you have to do is you have to practice. And the more you practice, the more you get better at it and the more effective it will be for you. And this also links to the fact that it seems that some personalities seem to be able to image better than others. But again, as we just said, the more you practice, the better you get at it. So that should be something that you should be focusing on, rather than the fact that maybe I'm not very good at it. Point number 5, timing. When should we utilize imagery? Now, the great thing about imagery is it can be done anywhere. You can be lying down in your bed and doing it. Let me just say a couple of things here. However, even though it can be done anywhere, imagery cannot replace physical practice. So let's just say that it cannot replace physical practice. You can imagine the skills in your mind, but ultimately you have to go and practice them. But it has been shown that combining imagery with physical practice is most effective. So yes, you can imagine it lying down in your bed, but if you utilize imagery a few minutes before you actually practice the technique, that combination of visualization plus practice seems to strengthen the performance that emerges. And so it is a good tool to be utilized during your training sessions. Finally, what modality should we use in imagery? Well, I think we've answered this already. Use all of them. Include moods and emotions. Include crowd noises. The more you can make that image real and the more you can bring in different parts of information, the better it is. One particular sense that's very important for athletes that we don't think about so often though, is the kinesthetic sense. How does your body feel? Are you aware of where your body is in space? Where is your hand? Where is your elbow? Where is your foot? When you start to think about these things, it can actually help refine your technique and manage the development of actual skills. And the last thing we'll just talk about is the perspective. Now, I think most of us, when we think about visualization, often think about it from the first person, because that's a lot easier. How are you seeing the world? But actually, some people do visualize from the third person. They imagine looking at themselves from the outside. Now, you realize you get two totally different perspectives. When you think of the first person, you can imagine yourself visualizing dribbling a football. When you think about the third person, you can see yourself dribbling the football. One gives you a perspective on what's happening right at your feet. The other, though less natural, gives you an understanding of your overall body posture and your technique. Both are equally effective. Evidence doesn't support either one. And so most mental and performance psychologists suggest that you choose the one that's most natural to you. And if you can switch between both of them, that's absolutely excellent. So you would have realized from what we've just seen that if there were to be two keys to effective imagery, one is your vividness. How much detail can you bring to the process? And here we're not just now talking about the sights and the sounds, but we're also talking about the sequence of events. Here's a little exercise you can do and try to be very vivid. Use as many senses as possible. Try and think about your emotions and all of these things. Simply imagine being at home. What does that look like? Imagine a positive performance of a particular skill that you engage in. And then imagine the best time you ever performed. Just go through those things in your mind and try to recreate them as much as possible with all the sights and sounds and moods and confidence and everything associated with it and the crowd noise and all of those different things. I'm sure if you imagine your best experience, your best positive performance, and you sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and do that, when you get up, you will have a sense of confidence. You will have a sense of, I can do this, a sense of doability. And you're seeing immediately the benefits of visualization. And if you now go to execute that task right now, you'll actually probably step into the process with more confidence and actually perform it better. Another key to effective imagery is controllability. Can you manipulate the images in your mind? And that's why we have this image of a gymnast doing a very difficult jump. Good visualization allows you to control the performance. And you can then imagine playing somebody who's a tough opponent, and you are learning to adjust your body, or just like this young lady doing the jump, you're learning how to change your body and contort your body to perform the jump. So you want your visualization process to be controllable. And this is especially important for cognitive skills. like controlling your emotions. So you don't want to just imagine the nerves you might feel before you take that penalty or serve that serve. But you also now want to imagine, how did I control the nerves? How did I regulate my emotions? How did I go through a controlled, slow breathing pattern to bring me back to focus? Developing the ability to control your images in your mind is a key skill inside of visualization. Now, how does imagery actually work? There are many theories out there that explains the benefits of imagery and visualization. But there are two things that perhaps get most traction. The first is it's believed that it actually enhances the motor learning process in your body. And this is called the theory of functional equivalence. And it has been shown that when you imagine a motor movement in your mind, that you actually activate the same neurons, the same brain cells that are responsible for carrying out that action in real life. Now, let me say that again, because that's very important. When you imagine something, you imagine making a jump or throwing a ball. What you do is you activate the same brain cells that are responsible for carrying out that action in real life and in real time. And so the neurons actually get to practice firing in sequence. And so by imagining it, you're actually laying down a pattern in your mind that then learns to activate muscles in sequence. And so it actually is a form of practice before you practice. And this has been believed to be a key benefit of imagery. Like I said, it doesn't replace physical practice, but it is almost like pre-practice in your mind that can enhance and benefit physical practice when you come to achieve it. And the other thing that's very clear from imagery work, and we just saw that with Jack Nicklaus and Michael Phelps, is psychological support. It seems that if you can effectively imagine performing a task, it promotes self-belief, self-confidence. It allows you to remove doubts. It allows you to anticipate challenges and learn how to respond to them ahead of time. It allows you to manage negative thoughts and anxiety. And so imagery seems to be very, very good at providing psychological support and boosting confidence and concentration. Here's a little diagram of how this really should work. You start off by speaking or defining the behavior or the action that you want to achieve. Then you actually imagine doing it. And then you imagine, well, how did I feel about it? And as that boosts your confidence, you go back and you repeat that cycle. And what you find as you repeat that over and over again, you move from maybe not a lot of confidence to more and more confidence as you're able to improve the visualization process in your mind. So having said all of that, then you can see you can use imagery in almost any situation. You can learn it to learn, you can use it to learn a new skill, but you can also use it to practice the skills you know already. You cannot just use it for individual skill, but you can use it for strategy. Like, I'm going to hit the ball here, and then I'm going to move here, and then I'm going to do this. Or a quarterback can imagine the strategy of how he's going to step back and how he's going to place his feet and how he's going to read the defense and then throw the ball. You therefore can use it to prepare for competitions and improve your concentration and control your emotional response. You can use it to build confidence and enhance motivation, solve problems, and even cope with pain and adversity. Basically, you can literally use imagery for any aspect of athletic performance. And this diagram here just summarizes that. You can use it in a motivational way and in a cognitive way. You can use it for goal-oriented responses, specific things to motivate you, going after winning a medal. But you can also use it to learn specific skills of how to execute a jump how to do specific strategies. And so imagery has a realm of uses that's worthwhile developing. Again, like any skill, you have to practice it. You have to practice it. You have to practice it controlling your emotions. You have to do it to build your confidence. You have to practice it to develop strategy. If you don't do it, when you get into the competition and there's pressure, you won't be able to draw upon it. Let's look at another quote. This is a famous basketballer who played with Michael Jordan and won titles with Michael Jordan. He said, I believe that if I can take 20 or 30 minutes before each game and visualize what's going to happen, I'll be able to react to it without thinking because I've already seen it in my mind. When I'm lying down before the game, I can see myself making a shot or boxing out or getting a loose ball. And then when I see it come up during the game, I don't think about it. I do it. There are no second thoughts, no hesitations. Sometimes after game, I'll go, wow, I saw that. I anticipated it before it happened. And so you can see imagery. Remember what we said, it's allowing him to strategize. It's allowing him to have confidence. It's allowing him to anticipate things before it happens. And it's allowing him to have the confidence to go on to automatic and just to trust his instincts and his skills and his practice. Can imagery ever be wrong then? I mean, the way we've spoken about it, it seems it's just a win-win in all situations. Well, there are some times when imagery can cause problems. What if you focus on the wrong thing? This is more in novices, where they can focus on the outcome goals. So they're close to winning a match, and they start to think about what will it feel like if I win? And this is during the match. And that becomes a distraction. It starts to make them nervous. Or they might focus on something that is too far ahead of them. They can't achieve right now. And that makes them frustrated. So that's an example when imagery can go wrong. And then there's also negative imagery. You notice in all the examples I've spoken about, it's always been positive. It's always been performing well, doing the act correctly. Now, when you actually start to practice visualization, you might discover that if you try to visualize an action, you actually visualize yourself doing it wrong. Maybe you've been doing something wrong technically for many years in your sport. And now when you try to imagine doing it, you imagine doing the wrong thing. Therefore, you have to train your mind to think about doing it correctly, and that can take a process. It's very important that we don't have negative imagery. And it's also important that coaches don't tell athletes what not to image. Always tell athletes what to image. So don't tell them, imagine that you're not doing something. Imagine that you're doing this. It's the flip sides of the same coin, but very, very different. And it's been shown that negative imagery, imagining the wrong thing, is not helpful to athletes. Now, here's a model. Many people try to come up with models, and this is one of the more popular models for actually how you can go about implementing imagery in your process. It's called the PETLEP model, and it's an acronym. P, physical, E, environment, T, task, T, timing, L, learning, E, emotion, P, perspective. Let's just go through these quickly, and you can see them on the slide. So if you have to go through visualization, well, you want to think about the nature of the task that's going to be performed. You want to think about where you're going to be positioned. Think about what equipment are you using. Think about how you are dressed. All of these things actually add to the imagery. Remember we said that you want it to be vivid, you want it to be real. E, your environment. Think about where is it taking place. Don't just imagine shooting a free throw. Think about shooting the free throw in the gymnasium where you're going to actually play the match. That's going to help with your imagery. Think about the task. Think about the task. Think about what's required. Think about going through the task. Think about the timing of the task in real time. Don't slow it down. Don't speed it up, because you want your brain cells to replicate what's going to happen in real time. Think about anything that you need to learn as you go through it. Are you observing little technical corrections that you need to make and correct them? Think about your emotions as you are in control of the situation and you feel positive and confident that you can correct any issues. And finally, if you can, switch your perspectives between third person and first person. Now you'll actually realize that all of these things means you're pretty advanced in imagery or visualization. And what's the key then? You have to practice. Only when you practice will you be able to achieve this level and incorporate all of these components. So as we come to a close, what can we say? Athletes of all age can benefit from imagery training. So can athletes of all skills. Always remember, keep your imagery positive. Don't do negative imagery. Imagery is a good skill to utilize right before practice, but it's also a very good skill to utilize in your off season when you're not actually physically training, but you want to just keep the mind a little bit active. It's important that if you want to use imagery and we don't want it to be negative, don't start off imagery with a set of negative emotions. That's not going to help you. When you're actually learning a new skill for the first time, that's when you could use slow motion. But once you're actually thinking about it in a game time situation, you want to use real time. Okay? And as we said before, use as many senses as possible and practice your imagery regularly if you want to get good at it. Here's Michael Jordan. He used to do this occasionally. He used to shoot a free throw with his eyes closed. Clearly, the ability to do that means that you can imagine it in your mind and then actually train your body to execute it. And so that's it for visualization. I want to say again, and I've said it a few times in this presentation, psychological skills, they're not a savior to your athletic performance. But like any skill, if you take the time to learn them and practice them, you will find that they benefit you and you will be able to get utility out of them. So give it a try. Make a deliberate plan to practice visualization and see if it actually helps you in your performance of your sport. Till next time, take care.